History of the Emblem, we're going to be talking about a game that's critically acclaimed as one of the best that the series has ever put out. Many praise it for its innovations and fixes, and it's one of the best-selling games in the series, as its first week's sales shattered the competition and left everyone in awe. I am of course talking about Mystery of the Emblem. So I know what you're probably thinking now. One of two things. One, I thought we were doing Radiant Dawn next. And two, how can you do Mystery of the Emblem without talking about the original Shadow Dragon first? Well, honestly, the answer to both of those questions is I really just wanted a chance to say, welcome to History of the Emblem, Mystery of the Emblem. Development for Mystery of the Emblem began at the tail end of Fire Emblem Guidance production life in 1992. Much like Thracia, the game was supposed to be a smaller project but grew as Shozo Kaga and team garnered more and more ideas. Intelligent Systems came up with the plan of having two different games, one a remake of the very first Fire Emblem game, Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light. The other would be new content with Marth and friends. The team had decided to go back to the story of Marth so that they could revisit and revamp the gameplay scene in Shadow Dragon, as they had greatly veered from it in Gaiden. However, their original idea of having two different games was quickly canned when they discovered the technical capabilities of the Super Famicom. Shadow Dragon's story would be included not only for the extremely technical reason of because they could, but also because they wanted to make sure those who had not played the original game would not be confused. Of course, for space and other technical reasons, they had to cut a bit of content from the original game. On January 21st, 1994, Mystery of the Emblem would be released on the Super Famicom. Now, I'm sure if you've heard of Mystery of the Emblem, you know that it received a remake back in 2010 called Fire Emblem, New Mystery of the Emblem, Heroes of Light and Shadow, that definitely rolls off the tongue, that added a few changes to the original game. Besides an update in graphics and music, Intelligent Systems also added an avatar character, a bunch of new characters through DLC, and more content that we'll get to later. Strangely, unlike its sister game Shadow Dragon, New Mystery of the Emblem was never localized and released outside of Japan. Speaking of another thing that was never localized and released outside of Japan, let's talk about BS Fire Emblem. This short series was released in 1997 for the short-lived Satellaview Super Nintendo peripheral and directly connected to both the stories of Shadow Dragon and Mystery of the Emblem. BS Fire Emblem mainly stuck to the standard tactical gameplay that the series is known for, but differs in the fact that it focuses on defeating waves of enemies in a 3-hour time limit. 4 episodes of BS Fire Emblem were released before the Satellaview's unfortunate end, and the content would go on to being remastered in New Mystery of the Emblem as additional content. We've kinda gone off on a tangent here talking about all these games related to Mystery of the Emblem, but let's get back to the game itself. Of course, Mystery of the Emblem uses a number of character archetypes. These are basically notable characters throughout every Fire Emblem game that utilize similar roles, whether it be in story or gameplay. Some of the archetypes that Mystery of the Emblem uses are Hardin, a representative of the Rudolph archetype, a unit that holds some sort of power and uses that power to declare war on a neighboring country. Aaron, who takes the role of a Jagan, a pre-promoted strong unit that you get at the beginning of the game, usually has low growth rates. As stated earlier in the video, the series actually returned and improved the original Fire Emblem formula that was seen in Shadow Dragon, as Fire Emblem Gaiden, the series' second game, drastically changed a lot of things. Some basic quality of life changes in Mystery of the Emblem were actually then made to be series standards, such as the colored tiles showing the movement capability of either you or the enemy. Some other things that first debuted in Mystery of the Emblem were dismounting, an ability that allowed your mounted units to leave their steeds. This ability was last seen in Thracia 776. Bond supports, which are quite different from the supports we know now. These supports are fixed and grant bonuses and critical hits when used. There are no support conversations tied to these. This mechanic has returned in Thracia and the Tellius games. Now let's move on to New Mystery of the Emblem, which actually introduced a lot of new things to the series despite being a later entry. New Mystery of the Emblem introduced the Avatar character. This iteration of the Avatar was quite different from what we had received in Fire Emblem 7, as this Avatar could become one of your units and engage in combat. Like the Avatar in Fire Emblem 7, Chris, the default name for the Avatar, is customizable, albeit in more ways than Blazing Blade's Avatar was. The Avatar mechanic returned to the series' next 2 installments, Awakening and Fates, and even appeared in the mobile spin-off game Fire Emblem Heroes. Speaking of Awakening, New Mystery of the Emblem also included a How's Everyone function that could be accessed during preparation for battle. Depending on how much time has passed according to the time on your Nintendo DS, you can get bonus points for checking in on your units. Sound familiar? This is almost identical to the Barracks feature from Fire Emblem Awakening, and definitely a precursor to the conversation in Fate's My Castle. New Mystery also introduced the option of 3 new game modes, ones that might sound familiar to you. They are Casual Mode, Classic Mode, and Lunatic. Casual Mode allows you to play the game without worrying about permadeath, Classic Mode keeps the classic Fire Emblem permadeath mechanic, and Lunatic Mode is a difficulty setting that can be placed on either Casual or Classic. Lunatic Mode is the highest setting in difficulty that one can choose from, and these settings have returned in every Fire Emblem game released since New Mystery. For a game that originally started as a way to improve on the very first Fire Emblem game, Mystery of the Emblem definitely had a huge impact on the series at large. It's definitely interesting to think how an entire series worth of content could have been changed if Mystery of the Emblem had been at least a little different. What if they had continued with Gaiden's gameplay for the 3rd game? Would the series have embraced more traditional RPG staples early on? What if New Mystery of the Emblem didn't include an Avatar character? How would Awakening and Fates have changed? And as for New Mystery, despite the fact that it includes probably the worst character in the franchise, it also surprisingly had a huge impact on the series, despite it just being a remake. It goes to show how important Mystery of the Emblem is to the Fire Emblem series as a whole, and I'm proud to have my channel named after it.